What if someone told you that the shape of your skull reveals your personality, that your kindness, your ambition, even your criminal potential could be felt beneath your hairline? This wasn't a joke. For over a century, people believed it was real science. This is the story of how a fake science rose to fame, deceived the world, and ultimately collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. This is the downfall of phrenology. In the late 1700s, an Austrian physician named Franz Joseph Gall had a theory. Different parts of the brain controlled different traits. Memory, language, affection, morality. They all had their own neighborhoods in the brain. Gall believed that the size of these brain regions affected how dominant each trait was. And since the skull sits on top of the brain, why not feel the skull to find out who someone really is? This became known as phrenology, from the Greek words for mind and study. At first, it sounded like real neuroscience, and that was the problem. Gall's ideas spread quickly, especially in Europe and later in America. It was scientific enough to sound credible, but simple enough for anyone to understand. Phrenology offered something seductive, a way to measure the unmeasurable. Who needs guesswork when your personality can be read like a map? By the early 1800s, phrenology had gone mainstream. People paid to have their heads read. Traveling phrenologists set up booths at fairs and expos. Even politicians and royalty were getting analyzed. In the United States, the Fowler brothers became phrenology's most famous evangelists. Their offices in New York offered readings, published books, and even sold custom busts. Phrenology became a tool for hiring employees, choosing marriage partners, diagnosing criminals. Even parenting advice was based on which skull bumps your child had. It wasn't just popular, it was profitable. Phrenology books sold in the hundreds of thousands. It became entertainment, medicine, and self-help, all rolled into one. But beneath the surface, a much darker story was unfolding. Phrenology didn't just claim to reveal individual traits. It also claimed to identify traits in entire groups of people. Phrenologists used skull measurements to argue that some races were biologically inferior, that enslaved Africans were naturally submissive, that white Europeans had superior moral faculties. It gave scientific cover to racism, sexism, and colonialism. And it wasn't fringe thinking. These ideas influenced politicians, police, and even scientists. It was also used to criminalize the poor and marginalized. Low foreheads were said to signal criminality. Unbalanced organs were blamed for moral failure. Phrenology wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. By the late 1800s, cracks in phrenology's credibility began to show. Advances in neurology and psychology proved its claims false. The brain didn't press on the skull like a mold. Skull shape had no connection to behavior. Traits weren't located in neat little organs. Real scientists began to speak out. By the early 20th century, phrenology was dead in academic circles, though it lingered in fringe communities for decades. The same simplicity that made phrenology popular became its undoing. The real brain is messy, complex, and full of surprises. And the skull? It's just bone. So why should we care about a dead science? Because phrenology wasn't just a mistake. It was a template, a warning sign. Today we still see pseudosciences that oversimplify the mind, promise easy answers, disguise bias as objectivity, and profit from fear. Phrenology may be gone, but the urge to measure, label, and control people through fake science, that's still very much alive. Sometimes the most dangerous science is the one that tells us exactly what we want to believe.